EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody. A good football Monday, an overreaction Monday after the Birds get a massive win in Week 10, 34-6. They completely trounced their division opponents. I want to welcome everybody in this morning on this Monday. Before I get into the show, the Eagles content, the reaction of the game, we'll have two great guests in Jeff Kerr and Chris Franklin. I want to extend a warm hand and a thank you to our veterans. It's Veterans Day today, so happy Veterans Day to all those who took the oath to defend America, our values. Your courage and fighting spirit are what make this country great, and they're the reason that we can sit here today and talk about football, pretty inconsequential in the big picture of things. So thank you to any veterans today that listen to the show and that don't listen to the show. We appreciate all veterans out there as well. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Monday morning, brother?
Doing well. Yeah. Just having a little chuckle at Jerry Jones' existential meltdown, but before the show. But yeah, so true about the veterans. Happy Veterans Day, everybody. And you know, they have to perform when the sun is out, the veterans. So, you know, I'm not gonna complain about the sun at AT&T Stadium. But evidently that's a big deal down in Dallas.
Yeah, apparently Jerry didn't like what was said about the sun beating in through the windows. I didn't know what to make of it. You know, I said Dak plays there every year. I mean, how big of a problem could it be?
Well, exactly. They know where the sun's going to be. Right. So here I should read the back and forth. So someone was complaining about the sun, and by the way, they were destroyed in this game. And yeah, there was one play where maybe if CeeDee Lamb picks it up, it might have been a touchdown. And I don't even know, to tell you the truth, because it's probably a badly thrown ball by Cooper Rush. And let's pretend it was a touchdown. Who cares? You know, they weren't winning that game. So it's all inconsequential. But somebody was asking Jerry about the sun. And he said, by the way, we know where the sun is going to be when we decide to flip the coin or not. Blah, blah, he's probably win the coin toss or not. We do know where the damn sun is going to be in our own stadium. And some knucklehead asked him, why not put curtains over the windows? And Jerry said, well, let's tear the damn stadium down and build another one. Are you kidding me? Everybody's got the same thing. Every team that comes in here has the same issues. I'm saying the world knows where the sun is. You get to know that almost a year in advance. Someone asked me about the sun. What about the sun? Where's the moon?
The sun. Jerry's crashing out, John, over the sun.
Well, I'm defending Jerry in that one narrow circumstance. I mean, come on. The sun, come on. That's like sometimes there's sun in baseball and center. You deal with it or you don't deal with it. One or the other. As you mentioned, how many years have they played there? How many years have they been successful there? The Eagles haven't won there in 7 years. You know, a lot of those were night games, so maybe that helped out the Eagles. They still lost. But yesterday, that was a complete domination. Got started a little bit late. I hate to, that's been a story all year for the Eagles. I hate to think about what it would have been if they weren't sloppy in the first half, because, it would have been something.
Yeah, well, I have a stat actually on the after the turnover, John. I have the stat. Let me pull it up. And this is courtesy of Tucker Bagley on Twitter. He tweets, after Jalen Hurts' second turnover, the Eagles outscored the Cowboys 27-0 and allowed just 38 total yards. Yeah. 38 total yards after the turnover. So you talk about if they started fast, I mean, well, they destroyed them after the turnovers, and if they started quick, it might have been an even bigger blowout.
Yeah, Cooper Rush is not prepared to deal with anything in this league unless everything is perfect and pristine around him. And that's a lot of quarterbacks, and they probably should have started Trey Lance because at least he's got some athleticism to do some things on his own, but wouldn't have made a difference. I mean, let's be honest. They they're in a bad spot. A lot of teams are in a bad spot when they go to backup quarterbacks, but they're in a really bad spot, to say the least. And the Eagles deserve credit for knocking down the pen, as I say.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take a lot from this game. I know everybody wants to translate it moving forward. You're not getting Cooper Rush again, so I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about translating things, but it was pretty impressive on the individual day. And, I brought up another playoff team yesterday and on the post-game show that didn't do it, and we're in a dogfight all afternoon. They did manage to win, talking about Minnesota, Jacksonville, but
Yep.
they managed to win, but just so many mistakes kept Jacksonville in it to the very end. Similar to the Eagles the week prior, but on this particular game day, it's just nothing to complain about. Nothing to complain. All I could come up with yesterday were the late throws in the first half from Jalen Hurts, or not even the late throws, the holding on to the football too long. And when I watched the all 22, maybe guys aren't open. That's possible. I find it hard to believe.
Some people were talking about that damn son in that quarter because that was right after they flipped the field, and then all of a sudden he's not letting the ball go. Now I tweeted, I think that's a little bit of an overreaction, but I don't know. Maybe there's something to it, John.
Maybe we'll like I said, we'll get to see a little bit better. Although hopefully we're on. Actually, I want to get on to Washington. To be honest,
I know. Well, it's going to be a fast turning of the page this week. I mean, Thursday night game. So
yeah. So who knows if we'll ever get to it? But knowing AJ and Devontae generally get open, so I mean somebody's probably open at some point there, and it's more than this one game. Let's be honest. So for the crutch people want to make excuses for everything, it's far more than this one game. He holds on to the football too long. Come on. Is anybody arguing that? At times he holds on to the football. Is that unfair? Does anybody really think that's unfair?
No,
other than
fair at all. I mean, it's not unfair. It's the truth. Now, Kenny P in the chat says I do. This is the one thing that did change my perspective a little bit on it. That CeeDee Lamb throw in the end zone. I mean, CeeDee didn't even react. He didn't even move for that ball. And I'm like,
I
oh shit.
Get it, but again, it's not one game.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I just meant like in that moment, he holds on to it a little long. Yesterday he was holding it for 5, 6, 7 seconds. I don't know. I think your mental clock should be going off at that point anyway. But I hear what you're saying. John, what do you make of the defense, man? A lot of talk about that defense. They're playing really good football. I know you're playing Cooper Rush, but there's definitely still some really positives out there. The way Zach Bond's playing, the way Quinyon Mitchell's playing. I mean, Brian Baldinger put out one of his Baldy breakdowns this morning on Quinyon Mitchell, and he tweets, Quinyon doesn't get beat. It's one of the certainties of life. And he's watching him cover CeeDee Lamb, and it's, I know you're
over the top. It's
hey, look,
coming.
it's overreaction.
I don't know. I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. That's everybody. I mean, Patrick Surtain, Sauce Gardner, Jalen Ramsey, who's been Nick Sirianni's favorite cornerback for years. Doesn't matter who you are, you're getting beat. So for the people saying that's a certainty of life in the NFL, that's not
around. But still, I mean, I thought he played well, and he is a positive in the game as well as Zach Bond.
Yeah, I mean the whole defense was just ridiculous. I mean, now again, it's Cooper Rush, but that's even to a degree understanding. Like it's really hard to play an NFL game and be under 2 yards per pass attempt. And I mean, he's afraid to throw the football down the field. He's not stretching the field. Everybody can jump everything. And the Eagles took advantage of it, and they deserve complete credit. And that's why this game coming up is so important for a host of reasons. But one is you're going to have, and I like the Eagles matchup with Vic Fangio and the veteran, because he's going to throw some stuff at Jaden Daniels that Jane Daniels has never seen before. But this is a guy who can make plays out of nothing, as you've seen multiple times this year. And this guy is similar to Jalen Hurts in that regard, a pain in the ass. You can do everything right, and you're still beat down the field, whether it's with his legs or his arms. So things get much tougher this week. I think the Eagles defense would be the first to tell you, we did our job, but I don't think they're going to hang their hat on this game as anything more than was. And that was knocking down the pin. And they knocked it down emphatically.
Still feels good, man, to blow the Cowboys out in Arlington. I mean, Johnny, you haven't beat the team there since 2017, dude. What is that, 7 years? That's a pretty long time we haven't won in Arlington, Texas, and we did it in a big way yesterday. I know you can't take much of it, but I do think the team should feel good about the win and start preparing for Thursday
night. Well, it's
funny.
I always go to Green Bay because the storied history of Lambeau Field, everybody knows about it. And there's a whole generation that doesn't know it didn't exist for about 20 years between Bart Starr and Brett Favre, to the point they actually played a bunch of their games in Milwaukee because they said, "Oh, what the hell? Who cares? We're getting waxed every week. Let's play in the bigger city and draw a few more fans." My point of bringing that up, because I always bring that up, the Eagles in this 6-year losing streak in AT&T Stadium lost to good football teams. They didn't play a good football team yesterday. So magically, there's no home field advantage. There's no home field advantage anywhere if you have a bad football team.
Right.
And they had a bad football team yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the CBS, shout out to the CBS crew. They gave a lot of good footage of the Cowboys fans crying on the telecast, which was great to see. John, what do you make of Zach Baun, man? I mean, he just continues to impress. I know I get it, yesterday's opponent, but he's still individually as a player just playing lights out football. You got to wonder if Howie Roseman is looking and thinking, should I get ahead of this? Should I get ahead of this? Should I get ahead of this? What say you about Zach Baun?
Well, he should get ahead of it, but again, what does that mean? I think a lot of people, and I say this, we talked about this a little bit last week, first of all, it's got to be a two-way street. Zach Baun's got an agent. I think you mentioned that. He's in his ear giving him advice. He said, dude, we're going to cash in. This organization is typically not the one that's going to offer a lot of money to linebackers. Will he sign a 3-year cost-effective deal to stay with the Eagles? Hopefully. And if that's the case, Howie will get it done. The question is, how far do you go? How far do you go?
Right.
Is 10 games, 9 games in 10 weeks, a big enough sample size? You got to be careful with that. It's been spectacular, but again, there's some context in it. There was and I said yesterday, if you at this point of the season, snapshot, this point of the season, because that's all you can do. When you factor in the money, we're talking 1 year, $1.6 million. That's it. Zach Baun is the best free agent signing in football. The best. I mean, I don't think that's even hyperbole. I don't
think it is either.
It's unbelievable what he's been able to do. But I'm not pulling out Roquan Smith contract. I'm not pulling out Fred Warner's contract. So it's difficult. And my guess is Howie is working on it, and then it comes down to Zach. Milton Williams would be signed by now if he wasn't betting on himself. I guarantee you. He's betting on himself.
Zach has commented several times about how much he loves playing in Philly, and I think he did it again last night. I know Ed Krause wrote an article about that, how much he loves playing here. He says he's been having the most fun playing football since Pee Wee.
Come on, Zander. That was me. That was not Ed.
Oh, you wrote that. Ed tweeted it yesterday. It was you that wrote it. Got it. Yeah.
But I will say that, yes, he's very grateful that this team has given him a chance, because that's half the battle sometimes for these guys. Dan was bringing up some players over the years. I bring up John Randall all the time. Didn't get drafted when it was a 12-round draft. He's in the Hall of Fame. A lot of these guys, if you don't give them an opportunity, you never know. But they get one slim opportunity, and he is hitting a home run with his opportunity so far.
No doubt.
I don't think it's going to change. I think he's going to be one of the best linebackers in football through the entire season. There'll probably be a few more Atlanta games thrown in there, but it's been pretty impressive.
I'd look to get him signed, man. I know it's early and I get it. You don't have great opponents, but he's clearly showed the instinct and the skill set to be able to.
But that's where you going. Are you paying?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like how high are you?
I mean,
going?
what do you think? Like, what's a ballpark number you have in your head when you think about a Zach Bond contract?
$7 million a year.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to get it done.
Well, then, do you want to go higher than that?
I'd maybe consider up to 10, somewhere in that range. I mean, that's a heavy price. I hear you.
Woo! 10 for 10 games, 9 games, 10 games on Thursday.
Yeah, I guess it's too early to go there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. For a guy that they didn't even evaluate as an all-ball linebacker. How
about a 3-year, $27 million deal? I like that. Right around 9. Give him $20 million guaranteed.
Well, and then the Eagles have never gone there. Now I'm using partially inflation when you look at not signing TJ Edwards. Although, again, maybe he wanted to go to Chicago. Maybe that factored into it. Never gotten a full declarative explanation about that, but the history of this team is they don't overspend at linebacker. And I talked about it with running back and they did it at running back. They've always had outliers at running back. Just because you don't believe it or you don't know them, they've always had outliers at running back. I'm not talking about you when I say that.
No, yeah, I know what you're saying. Yep.
I've never heard them. It's not that I've never heard an outlier linebacker for this current modern Eagles organization. I've never heard about that player. And usually it trickles down and you hear about these players that they wanted. Never heard it. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Some of the
he's going to get paid somewhere.
Some of the chat think he'd take the $7 million, but I think that's where the agent comes in and is like, Zach, I know you like this, but I'm easily getting you $10 million a year in the open market, maybe 12 if we get a buyer. And there's a lot of dumb GMs out there that might take the bait and give you.
And there's always, AJ, Devontae, they took way less money than they could have gotten if they really wanted to go down the road that they could have gone down. Way less money. So, don't underestimate the gratefulness that he has for this organization. But again, everybody's different. And if he wants just the most money, he's probably going to bet on himself.
Yep, we'll see what he ends up doing there. I'm very encouraged by the play of Zach Bond. He is playing well, and I think Nakobe Dean's playing well too. I think it'd be valuable to keep those guys together for another year. Get some continuity at the linebacker position, Howie. We'll see what ends up happening there. John, we'll get to a couple super chats. We got Jeff Kerr coming up in about 3 or 4 minutes, so looking forward to talking to Jeff, and then we'll have Chris Franklin in hour number 2.
By the way, real quick, you know what the best thing about Zach Bond is?
What's that?
Best thing. Nobody talks about Devin White anymore.
That's true.
And I've yet to get the apology. I never get the apology, Zander.
Well, John,
I get all the yelling and all the angry emails and all the "you're an idiot." Never get the apologies.
John, I'll give you the apology. Well, I won't give you the apology because I don't need to. Because I was.
No, you don't need to.
I was prepared for the Devin White shenanigans because of you. And it played out exactly as really you expected it to play out. And Devin White no longer with the Eagles. Now Zach Bond playing like an all-pro or a Pro Bowler, at least right now, Let's get to a couple super chats here. Appreciate everybody in the chat. I mentioned at the top of the show, for those just checking in, it is Veterans Day, and we thank, we support, and we appreciate all of our veterans here at JAKIB Sports. So thank you guys for the support and for servicing our nation, for watching over us. We appreciate that. Brian Garner checks in. Brian, thank you, man. Appreciate it. $20 super chat here. He says, commentators are not helping fans understand the game. The Steelers game yesterday, Charles Davis said he wouldn't have gone for the fake punt. WTF are you talking about? The player dropped
wide open. He was wide open. It was a brilliant call.
It was.
If you want to call it a call. All you're doing is taking advantage of the situation. They didn't cover the gunner.
Right. They didn't even line up with a fake punt call, right? They saw the gunner was open.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They checked it. Yeah.
That's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. And the player, again, it's not just Philadelphia. If the player doesn't execute, that doesn't mean it's a bad call by the coach. I mean, my God, that's a gift. Yeah, I don't.
That's a Brian Garner. That's a Johnny Mac super chat early on a Monday, my man. Calling out blaming the player, not the play call.
He dropped the ball. He dropped it. It was wide. Yeah. Bad call by the come on.
Yeah, well, to Brian's point, that's what the commentator on the game said that. Now you have millions of people who watch that, listen to it, and think it's a bad call. I think that's what Brian's getting at, that they're not elevating the conversation like you always
Well, they were really backed up, and you say, you can't do that. You can't do that. And they'll say, because that can happen. All right, yeah. You can also, again, aggressive teams win. Good teams win. Good teams have confidence in themselves. If you want to go tell your players, I don't have confidence in you to catch a simple throw where nobody's near you, what are you saying? What kind of message is that?
Good stuff, Brian. Thank you, brother. A couple more super chats we'll get to. Saquad says, this defense made 5-1 Cooper Rush look like he didn't belong in the league. The point is, we're seeing major growth with Vic, and winning is contagious. Johnny Mac, Saquad's feeling good after the win. You want to bring him back to earth? What's your response?
No, winning is a habit. Dennis Green told me that. First guy, well, he's not the first guy, but he's the first guy who told me when I was younger, winning is a habit, losing is a habit. And he used to try to win preseason games when preseason games mattered. I always thought that was interesting. And he came and took over a bad team at the time. And sure enough, they started making the playoffs every year. And it always stuck with me. Winning is a habit. Losing is a habit. And right now, the Eagles are kind of feeling themselves, and it's a good thing. And confidence is huge in this league. So, I agree. I've always agreed with that.
Yep. Good stuff, Saquads. Appreciate it, brother. Trucker Beans checks in. Does Vic's defense force tight window throws, Johnny Mac?
Sometimes when they're giving up the underneath stuff, nobody's happy about the windows.
Yeah.
I mean, they took advantage of a situation. I wouldn't get too hyped up about. And the commenter before said 5-1 Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush won some games as a game manager when he was with a very good team. Yesterday, he didn't have a very good team.
Yeah.
Was forced to make plays on his own. Can't do it. But we've already been through early in the season when they're giving up all the underneath stuff. Everybody's losing their mind. It kind of depends when they're cooking and rolling downhill against a bad quarterback. Yeah, but again, that necessarily doesn't translate. The whole design of the defense is to limit explosive plays. So you're going to give up some underneath stuff against good quarterbacks.
Yep, no doubt about it. We'll get to our first commercial break here. And one thing I want to talk about that we will talk about, I'm sure we'll bring it up with Jeff Kerr, is that Lions game last night. We got to talk about that, everybody. So we will do that when Jeff Kerr gets in here. We are up to 57 likes and over 400 in the chat already. Let's smash that like button for Birds 365 this morning, everybody.
Oh, if the Eagles lose, we'd have like twice the audience. Everybody's satiated with a big game coming up on Thursday.
You're big audience, John, that people love Negadelphia. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, it would be double. It would be double the audience. Boy, I miss Anklegate.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Hey, look, up to 65 already. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Hit that like button. Let's get to at least 100. for Johnny Mac. We got to shut Johnny Mac up. He's calling us Negadelphia. Can we get to 100 likes before we get out of the break? Jeff Kerr coming up next. Before I get to our commercial break, let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. I'll put the promo code on the screen now. You can see it up there. It's YouTube 150. It gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit. So big shout out to BetUS. Go check them out at betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They're the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager to make your bets. So go check out BetUS, and a big thanks to them for sponsoring the 2-hour show today. We'll be back in 3 minutes with Jeff Kerr on the other side.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.